of me wanted to believe it was just a gift. Part of me knew deep down that something was off. But mostly when I held that envelope in my hands on Father's Day weekend, I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that was just what 63 years of hard living does to a person. Makes you suspicious of kindness. The card was from my son, my firstborn, Donovan. I raised 2 boys in this house. Same roof, same kitchen table, same rules. Donovan came first, and from the moment he could walk, he had this way of filling a room. Loud laugh, easy smile, the kind of boy coaches loved and teachers called a handful. He was magnetic. I won't pretend otherwise. Even now, even after everything, I can still see the little boy who used to fall asleep watching baseball with his daddy on Sunday afternoons. My younger one, Theo, was different. Quieter. He read books nobody asked him to read. Fixed things around the house without being told. Remembered birthdays and anniversaries without a reminder. He was never the one people noticed first. He was just always there. Steady, like a fence post you never think about until a storm comes and you realize it's the only thing still standing. Their father, my husband Raymond, passed 6 years ago. Heart attack sudden, no warning. We'd been married 31 years. After that, it was just me in this house, me and the dog, and the memories baked into every corner of these walls. Raymond left behind a life insurance policy, some savings, and this house, paid off, thank God. Sitting on a half-acre in a suburb outside of Columbus, Ohio. Nothing glamorous. But in this market, nothing small either. I never made a secret of the fact that I intended to leave it to both boys equally. That was always the plan. Raymond and I had talked about it. 2 sons, 2 halves. Simple. I don't know exactly when Donovan decided that wasn't going to be good enough. He called me the week before Father's Day, which always felt strange. Father's Day, after Raymond died. Some years I treated it like any other Sunday. Some years I went to the cemetery. That particular June, I was doing fine. I've been doing water aerobics at the Y3 mornings a week. Started a little container garden on the back porch. Had dinner with my friend Sylvia every other Thursday. Donovan called and said he was coming to visit. He said he had something for me. I asked what the occasion was, and he said, "Mom, do I need an occasion?" I said, "No, of course not." He drove up that Saturday morning looking sharp. Blazer, good shoes, the kind of effort he usually only made when he wanted something from a bank or a woman. He brought me a fruit basket from that fancy grocery store downtown, the kind with the ribbon and the cellophane and the little chocolate-dipped strawberries. He hugged me longer than usual. He called me Mama, which he hadn't done since high school. We sat on the back porch, and he talked about his job, some new position he said he was up for, something in regional sales management. He talked about his apartment in Cincinnati, how the neighborhood had really come up, how he was thinking about buying a place of his own finally. He was 41 years old, my son, and he had never owned property. That was not a judgment. That was just a fact. After a while, he reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. He slid it across the patio toward me like it was nothing, like it was a restaurant menu. "I've been talking to a financial advisor," he said, "just for some estate planning stuff, to protect what you have. Because with property taxes in Ohio going the way they are, and with everything getting more complicated," I looked at the papers inside the folder. There were a lot of words, a lot of sections, a lot of lines with little sticker arrows pointing to where a signature would go. "What is this exactly?" I asked. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped, very relaxed, very practiced. "It's just a transfer of interest," he said. "Not ownership. Just a way of structuring things so that if anything happened to you, the house wouldn't have to go through probate. It saves time, saves money, saves Theo and me a headache down the road." He smiled. He had Raymond's smile. "I had a lawyer look at it," he added. I picked up the folder and looked at the first page again. Then I set it down. Let me read through it this weekend, I said. My eyes aren't what they used to be. I'll need to sit with it properly. He nodded. Very easy, very agreeable. Of course, Mama. Take your time. He stayed for lunch. I made his favorite pot roast with the little pearl onions, the way his grandmother used to make it. He ate 2 plates and told me it was the best thing he'd had in months. Before he left, he hugged me again and told me he loved me. I stood on the porch and watched his car back out of the driveway. Then I went inside and called Theo. Theo lived 40 minutes away in Dayton. He worked as an electrician, owned a modest house, had a steady girlfriend named Patricia who brought me tomatoes from her garden every August. He was not exciting, my younger son. He was reliable, which I had come to understand was worth considerably more. I didn't tell him on the phone what was in the folder. I just said Donovan had dropped off some paperwork and I wanted a second set of eyes. He came over the next morning. He sat at the kitchen table with the folder and read it the way he read everything. Slowly, carefully, without talking. I made coffee and waited. The dog settled under his feet, which she always did with Theo, never with Donovan. After about 20 minutes, Theo looked up. His face was very still. That stillness my younger son had. I'd seen it before. It usually meant he was working very hard to stay calm. "Mom," he said, "this isn't a probate avoidance document." I set my coffee cup down. "This is a quitclaim deed," he said. "If you signed this, you're transferring full ownership of the house to Donovan, not partial, not shared, full." The kitchen was quiet. "There's a life estate clause in here," he continued, "which means you'd have the right to live here until you die. But after that, the house goes to him entirely. It cuts me out completely. And it also means you lose the ability to sell or refinance without his permission. Starting immediately." I sat down. The fruit basket was still on the counter, the cellophane catching the morning light. "He said a lawyer reviewed it," I said. My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Maybe one did," Theo said. "Mom, this is a real document. This is notarized and ready to go. Someone prepared this intentionally." He said it carefully, the way you say something you don't want to say. He laid the paper flat on the table between us like evidence, which I suppose it was. I thought about the way Donovan had slid that folder across the patio table. Casual. Like it was nothing. I thought about the pot roast, about him calling me Mama, about the fruit basket with its ribbon and its little chocolate strawberries. And I thought about something my mother used to say. Back in her day, the sweetest candy always comes right before they ask for something. I did not confront Donovan immediately. I want to be honest about that. Part of me still looked for a reason not to believe what was right in front of me. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe he genuinely thought it was a simpler document than it was. Maybe the financial advisor had confused the paperwork. I called a real estate attorney on Monday morning, a woman named Beverly who a friend from church had used. I didn't mention Donovan's name. I just read her a summary of what the document said. She didn't mince words. "What you're describing," she said, "is a mechanism that would transfer your primary asset to one person while leaving you with residential rights only and removing your ability to leverage that asset without the new owner's consent. It also eliminates any claim from other heirs." She paused. "If someone presented this to an elderly parent as estate planning paperwork, I would call that predatory." Predatory. She used that word without being asked. I thanked her and sat with the phone in my lap for a long time. Here is the part that still makes my chest tighten when I think about it. 2 days after Theo came over and read the papers, Donovan called. "Just to check in," he said. "Just to see how I was doing." He mentioned, almost in passing, that he'd been thinking, if I signed the paperwork soon, it could all be finalized before the end of the fiscal quarter. Something about tax timing. He made it sound routine, and slightly urgent, the way salespeople do. I told him I'd been busy. He said, "It's really simple, Mama. You don't even need to understand all of it. You just need to sign. You just need to sign." I don't think he realized what he'd said. I don't think he heard it the way I heard it. But I have been hearing those words ever since, turning them over. You just need to sign, not "let me explain it to you," not "do you have questions," just sign, just trust me, just hand over the thing you and your husband spent 31 years building. I told him I'd think about it. I didn't sleep that night. What I decided after those sleepless hours was that I wasn't going to cry about it. I had already cried. I cried in the bathroom with the door closed after I got off the phone with Beverly. I cried a little the night Theo read the papers and we sat quietly at the kitchen table, not saying what we were both thinking. I gave myself that. Then I put it down. Because here is what I know about grief, and I learned this the hard way when Raymond died. You cannot stay inside it. You have to decide what to do with what you have left. What I had left was this house, my right mind, my younger son, and the quitclaim deed that Donovan had handed me like it was nothing. I made an appointment with Beverly, not just to understand the paperwork, but to rewrite my will. It had been 4 years since Raymond and I had updated our estate documents, back when things were simple and both boys felt like both boys. I walked into Beverly's office that Thursday morning with the folder Donovan had brought me, and I walked out 3 weeks later with a new will, a revocable living trust, and a plan that did not include anyone deciding things for me. I also reached out to a social worker through a senior services organization in Franklin County. She was the one who told me that what Donovan had attempted, presenting a document that transferred a parent's primary asset under false pretenses, had a name. She said it was more common than I wanted to know. She gave me resources. She said I had done exactly the right thing by not signing and by getting an independent attorney involved. That helped, somehow. Knowing I had done the right thing, I want to tell you about what happened next, because this is the part nobody expects. 3 weeks after I had the new trust finalized, Donovan called again. By this point, he'd started calling more frequently, not about the paperwork, just calling, checking in, asking if I needed anything, asking about the house, whether the roof had been inspected recently, whether I'd thought about what I wanted to do long term. I stayed warm. I stayed normal. I answered the questions I wanted to answer and let the others drift past. Then one evening he called, and his voice sounded different, tight. He said he'd received a letter from an attorney's office, Beverly's firm. Not a lawsuit, nothing criminal, just a formal notification that I had established a revocable trust and that any future communication regarding my estate should be directed through legal counsel. He said, "Mom, what is this?" I said, "It's exactly what it sounds like, sweetheart." There was a long pause. "Did Theo put you up to this?" he asked. "I want you to understand. Theo hadn't put me up to anything. Theo had read a piece of paper his brother slid across my patio table and told me what it said. That was all. The rest I did myself." "Theo didn't put me up to anything," I said. "I went to an attorney. I made decisions about my own property. I'm 63 years old, not 6. Donovan's voice shifted. The warmth dropped out of it completely, the way a stage set gets disassembled once the show is over. He said I was being irrational. He said I'd misunderstood the paperwork. He said the financial advisor had assured him it was standard. He said I'd been influenced. That word, influenced, like I was soft clay that Theo had pressed into a shape. I listened to all of it. Then I said, "I love you, Donovan. I am always going to love you, but you will not make decisions about this house and you will not talk to me as though I don't understand my own affairs. If you'd like to have a real conversation, I'm here, but this conversation is over." I hung up. I sat in Raymond's old armchair and held the phone in my lap. The dog put her head on my knee. Outside, the container garden on the back porch was catching the late afternoon light. The tomatoes Theo had helped me stake up were coming in. Small, improbable things pushing through the soil in little clay pots. I thought about Raymond. I thought about all the years we worked to pay off this house. The lean years, the double shift years, the years of putting back a little every month when most people our age were putting it on credit cards. I thought about what it would have meant to sign that paper. I didn't sign it. I'll be honest with you. Things between Donovan and me have not gone back to the way they were. Some part of me keeps hoping they will. Some part of me is still that woman who stood on the porch watching his car back out of the driveway and tried to find a charitable explanation. But I have stopped trying to explain away what was in front of me. He has called a few times since. The conversations are short and careful, like negotiating around broken glass. He has not apologized. I have not asked him to. What I know is that apologies without change are just words dressed up in remorse, and I am too old and too tired to be moved by a performance. Theo comes on Sundays now. He's been helping me get the back garden organized, and sometimes Patricia comes and they stay for dinner. The house feels different those evenings, fuller somehow, even though it's just 3 people and a dog. Beverly helped me set up the trust so that the house passes to both boys equally, as I'd always intended. Theo knows this, I told him. His response was exactly what I expected. He said he just wanted to make sure I was taken care of. He didn't ask about percentages or timing. He just said he hoped I'd be in that house for a long time. I intend to be. I think about that folder sometimes. The way it arrived, wrapped inside a fruit basket and a pot roast and a long hug at the door. The way it was dressed up in the language of care, protecting what you have, saving you a headache. It's for your benefit, Mama. You just need to sign. I think about what would have happened if I'd signed it that weekend, before I thought too hard about it, before I called Theo. I think about how reasonable it would have felt in the moment. How much I wanted to believe my son was taking care of me. And I think about something that woman Beverly said when I thanked her at the end of our last meeting. I told her I still felt a little foolish, that I'd almost signed it. She looked at me over her reading glasses and said, "You didn't sign it. That's the whole story." She's right. The whole story is that I didn't sign it. But I'll tell you what else is part of the story, the part that doesn't get talked about enough. It wasn't just that I caught it in time. It was that I had someone to call. It was that Theo picked up on the first ring and drove over on a Sunday morning without asking why. It was that the person I'd overlooked for years, the one who never filled a room, the one I used to worry didn't have enough of his father's fire. He was the one sitting at my kitchen table with the papers, reading every line. I used to think the loudest thing you could say to a child was, "I love you." I still believe that, but I've come to understand that the loudest thing a child can say back isn't words. It's showing up. It's driving 40 minutes on a Sunday. It's reading the fine print so you don't have to. The fruit basket is long gone. The garden is doing fine. The house is still mine, and I am still here. I've had a lot of time to sit with what happened. Not just the paperwork, not just the phone calls, all of it. The fruit basket, the pot roast, the way Donovan said Mama, like he hadn't in 20 years. I've turned it over enough times now that the sharp edges have worn down a little, though they haven't disappeared. What I keep coming back to is this: the choices we make in quiet moments, the ones nobody sees, have a way of writing the rest of the story for us. Donovan made his choices over a long stretch of time, probably longer than I want to admit. Small decisions to prioritize what he could get over what he could give. I don't think he woke up one morning and decided to become someone who'd hand his mother a fraudulent deed dressed up in legal language. I think it happened gradually, the way most erosion does. A little at a time, until one day the ground just isn't what it used to be. And I made my choices too. I chose to call Theo. I chose to sit with the discomfort instead of signing something just to keep the peace. I chose to walk into Beverly's office and ask the questions I was a little afraid to ask. Those weren't dramatic choices. Nobody would make a movie out of them. But they were mine, and they mattered. There's something I want to say about Theo, because I don't think I gave him enough credit for long enough. He was never the impressive one by the world's measure. He didn't have Donovan's ease in a room, didn't have that shine. But Theo built his life out of something more durable than shine, out of steadiness, out of showing up, out of doing the unglamorous thing because it needed doing. Reading that paperwork wasn't heroic. It was just careful. It was just honest. And in that kitchen on that Sunday morning, it was everything. I think about what it means to raise children and watch them become who they decide to be. You can pour everything into someone and still not control what they do with it. That's the hardest thing about loving people. They get to choose. Donovan chose. Theo chose. And I had to choose too, even when the choosing hurt. What I've learned at 63 is that intelligence isn't just about knowing things. It's about being willing to look clearly at what's in front of you, even when you'd rather not. It's about asking a second person to read the paper. It's about calling the attorney on a Monday morning, even when part of you hopes she'll tell you it's nothing. And resilience isn't about being unaffected. I was affected. I cried in the bathroom with the door closed. I lost sleep. I sat in Raymond's old armchair and felt the particular loneliness of being disappointed by someone you love. Resilience is just what you do after that. It's making the appointment anyway. It's planting the tomatoes anyway. It's staying in your house and tending what's yours. The fruit basket is gone. The house is still standing. And so am I.